The purpose of any mechanic in a role-playing game is to tell a story. They exist as a way to facilitate the narrative into a certain direction. And one of the ways this is most obvious is the existence of monsters. How come we can never get enough of monsters? I have like an entire monster manual, and every time I get more monsters, I just add them to my list. I have more and more and more, and I always want more and more and more. How come we don't just say when a creature is CR 10, it does this much damage and has this many hit points? Why do we bother to make them different from each other? Because we want fiends and fae and aberrations to feel different. A CR 10 aberration should feel different than a CR 10 fae. And conversely, I want many CR 10 fae. I want a Bugbear CR 10 fae to feel different from a Treant CR 10 fae. I want those two stories to be different. Bugbears in 5th edition have always had a weird sort of amalgamated story that I've never really been able to grasp onto until very recently. Let me show you how. Welcome to Mystic Arts. My name is Daði. I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for over 11 years. This is the 2014 Bugbear. As you can see, it's got AC 16, 27 hit points, and 2 traits. This trait makes it do more damage, and it doesn't really need to be on the stat block because it's included in the attack anyway. This trait is trying to tell us a story. The Bugbear is an ambush predator. If it surprises you in combat, it deals an average of extra 7 damage, which if you're low level, that's a lot of damage. So the Bugbear is like a lion or a panther. It's the kind of creature that hides in the bushes. It's big and strong, but it gets down low and waits for an opportunity to pounce, and then it absolutely annihilates you. But when they revisited the Bugbear for the 2024 5th edition, 2nd edition, they made some changes. A big part of the new edition's push, as far as I can tell, is to try and avoid scenarios where it's either really swingy or very unlikely to matter. The surprise attack on this Bugbear will only matter in the first round of combat, sometimes, not every time. Which means once you've rolled initiative, if the Bugbear surprised no one, and if the Bugbear surprised someone and didn't get to go before them, this feature is dead. It doesn't do anything. So it failed at telling a story. This is a problem with the Bugbear stat block. So they try to fix it. The new Bugbear Warrior has a new iconic feature. Abduct. The Bugbear needn't spend extra movement to move a creature it's grappling. Okay, how often is the Bugbear grappling someone? Action. Grab. Bugbear does some damage and automatically grapples you. And then here's the kicker. In addition to grapple's usual features, a Bugbear also has advantage on creatures it's grappling. Now it tells a story, and it's kind of back to being an ambush predator. Almost. Bugbear jumps out of the bushes, punches you, does some damage, grabs you, and then runs away with you. Maybe pulling you into his back line where his Bugbear buddies are all going to bonk you on the head. But did you notice the thing that I didn't point out? Bugbears now have a 10-foot reach. This is largely happening because Bugbear player species were introduced in the intervening years in books like Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Multiverse of whatever it was. And obviously they couldn't give players abilities like Brute, so they had to give them something else, and they gave them long arms and gave them a 10-foot reach. And already I'm feeling like this is starting to get to be a more flavorful Bugbear. But I have problems. Because as soon as you introduce another creature in this stat block range, it gets complicated. The Bugbear Stalker doesn't have the grab attack. Instead, it has Quick Grapple, a bonus action DC-based attack. As a bonus action, the Stalker makes you make a save, and if you fail, it grabs you. Then it can hit you twice with a Morningstar. If you watched my video on hobgoblins and modular design, you know why I have a problem with this. Now, if I'm running a scenario with a Bugbear Stalker and some Bugbear Warriors, I'm going to be confused on which action I'm using at any given time. Is it the grab attack or is it quick grapple? One of them's a save, one of them's an attack. One of them does damage, the other one doesn't. To their credit, they do have different names, but the DC is slightly different too. I'm going to end up confusing this at the table. When I'm running D&D, my brain is already mostly fried. The players are all asking me ruling questions. I've got a map to look at. I'm trying to think of what the next story beat is in the, overall campaign maybe. Maybe I'm trying to hatch some kind of scheme. Maybe I've gotten really bored with the how far away is blank and so on questions. I want the monsters to be as simple as they can be. And a lot of the times, I'm not looking at the stat blocks, I'm looking at the map. So I want the stat blocks to stay in my head. So I quickly opened up Obsidian and remade the Bugbear. I do this all the time on my table. I take stat blocks from 5th edition and I change them a little bit so that they are the version of them that I would like to run. And this Bugbear basically solves all my problems. This is a new CR1 Bugbear replacing the Warrior. And what you can see I've done here is that it just gets the bonus action Quick Grapple from its older cousin, the Stalker, loses the grab attack, and just gets a hand axe attack, And technically that's a buff, since it can now grab you and do the advantage attack in the first turn, but it's also just easier for me to remember. I also went ahead and remade the Stalker, called it the Brute, and here I could keep everything the same, and it doesn't bug me at all that these things are two different features. Because when two features are needlessly different, well, I think that's a little bit of a bugbear of mine. I really enjoy doing this kind of monster design. Taking what I like to think of as modular design, making the numbers stay the same mostly between Statblocks as close as I can get them, keeping features like Quick Grapple the same between Statblocks, and making it easier for DMs to run it at the table. If you're wondering about the software I'm using, it's Obsidian. I've got a video on how that works. I've also got a video on the vault that I'm using to do this right now. And then I went back to thinking, what kind of story are these bugbears telling? When I made that Hobgoblin video, I was thinking about, how do I make an army? And when I did the Goblin video, I was thinking, how are the goblins having fun? They're little trickster demon things. So they're cackling to themselves. They're making each other laugh. And then I'm always thinking about synergy. Not in the boring corporate way, but how one monster buffs another monster. And I mean, I already have goblins and hobgoblins. If I do the bugbears, I've got the entire goblinoid trifecta. So I thought, what kind of bugbear would goblins really like to be teamed up with? This is the Bugbear Enforcer. It's basically the same as a Bugbear Brute, but it has the hand axe attack from a grunt, and it's got a new feature called Snatch and Grab, where if they've already got someone grappled, which they could have done as a bonus action before doing Snatch and Grab, they have to do an additional hit on the target, hit their AC, and immediately restrain the target. And then the Bugbear can move up to its speed. And now why is that important? Because all goblins do extra damage when they have advantage on an attack, and restrained gives you that advantage. Do you see the magic? The Bugbear Enforcer runs in, does the classic Bugbear grapple, no different from any other Bugbear, but then does a special attack to restrain, put rope around you, run with that creature to the back rank where all the goblins are hiding. Goblins get out their little daggers and do a bunch of stabbing, and now you're taking extra damage from the advantage attacks. This kind of bad guy synergy was already obvious with the Hobgoblin's Aura of Authority that gives you advantage. But now the bugbears do the same thing. Now I made like 12 goblin stat blocks and I made like 10 hobgoblin stat blocks, so I figure it's time for me to make like 8 bugbear stat blocks. And it'd be really cool if I made them PDF this time so you can print them. This is the Bugbear Butcher, a new higher level CR bugbear variant. It's got more hit points and it's CR 5. It's still got the abduct and the multi-attack with the javelin, but instead of a morning star, it's got a meat cleaver, which it has advantage on if you are grappled by it. And then it can grapple you the same as any other bugbear, but here's the kicker. The Bugbear Butcher has legendary actions. Just one type of action. It's got 3 uses of it, but the action is called Butchery, and it makes a meat cleaver attack against the creature it's grappling. So it runs up to you, quick grapple, meat cleaver attacks you, ends its turn, you go. At the end of your turn, attacks again. Next person. At the end of their turn, attacks again, as it's just beating the meat, hacking away at your body. And now there's a scramble. And this is where we go back to story. What is the encounter story? What is the mechanic story? Well, the Bugbear Butcher is a story in a box. He grabs a target and he continues to take their hit points down every turn. So as soon as it's anybody's turn, the question becomes, can you stop the butcher? Can you knock him out? Can you do enough damage? Hell, can you end the grapple? Can you push the bugbear? Because if 2 creatures are pushed apart while grappling, it ends the grapple. Can you push the bugbear? Can you knock him out? Can you take him out? Can you cast sleep on him? Save me, I'm being butchered! Here's a couple of more bugbears, a Beastmage and a Spotter. They're both CR7, they have about the same hit points and the same AC, to keep things simple, and save us all a little bit of headache. They both have abduct and multi-attack. The Beastmage can make beasts attack you. They also have spellcasting, they're the spellcaster, including Conjure Woodland Beings and Conjure Elemental. They can also Fate Step and cast Hellish Rebuke. The Spotter, meanwhile, gets a new type of bonus action, Spot Weakness. An allied creature the bugbear can see within 30 feet may use their reaction to move up to 15 feet without provoking opportunity attacks, and take an action, excluding multi-attack. And if the target's a bugbear, it can also use quick grapple. And now we go back to synergy. How do we make these stat blocks play together? Well, the Spotter can shout out to the Butcher. The Butcher can run up, take a quick grapple, bonus action, and a meat cleaver action. Then the Spotter ends its turn, you go. At the end of your turn, the Butcher then engages the Butchery. Someone else goes Butchery, someone else goes Butchery. And then it's the Butcher's turn. Telling stories, playing with synergies. This is the philosophy of pushing your buttons. All of these features on these stat blocks become buttons you can push. When you push the Butchery button, the players all get tense. They know that this Butcher is going to keep hacking and hacking and hacking until we get our friend out of its grasp. And you as the DM are just pushing the buttons. The Spotter, using Spot Weakness, you can now create that little bit of synergy. And this is what you're doing when you're designing monsters. You're having fun thinking about synergy and story. Can these buttons you push play with the other buttons? The traits, right? The benefits. Can they engage conditions in such a way that you're now having fun as a DM and running the monsters becomes engaging and fun and exhilarating and tells the story? Obviously, spot weakness has to be interesting if you decide not to use a butcher, so it's also got hold monster. It can cast hold monster. If the creature fails the save, it then uses spot weakness to get someone to attack the paralyzed creature. This is the kind of storytelling I love in mechanics. And when you're designing your storytelling mechanics, I want you to be thinking in these terms. Think about how you can make sure that you're having fun designing, because then your designs will be better. The DM has fun DMing, because then the DMing will be better. And it creates tense situations, because when the players are in danger, it maximizes their possibilities for being heroic. It is easy to be a hero against monsters that don't do anything interesting. So as the DM, you have to give them monsters that force them to think, that terrify them just enough that they're worried about what the hell they're going to do next, that they start thinking about their turn intensely, literally wondering what is the best use of my turn. I thought a lot about what is the story of these bugbears. Not just each individual bugbear, the butcher doing butchery, but if hobgoblins are an army, and goblins are a court of trickery, then the bugbears are special forces, shock troops. And if that's the case, I need a sniper. Yeah, that seems appropriate. It's an attack that does a crap ton of damage, and it can't miss. It always does some damage. The question is, does the guy hit you square in the chest, or does he graze you? And grazing you is still 45 damage on average. That is the marksman's bolt on the bugbear Deadeye. But what's the story of a sniper? If he just does a crap ton of damage all the time, that kind of blows. So what is the story? Well, if we get close to him, we can just kill him. He's not that tough. How do you tell that story? Well, for a CR9 creature, that is a relatively low AC and that is very low hit points. And his attack is not that great. So if you get into melee with this thing, you're probably just going to whoop it. But until you do, it is using the marksman's bolt. Granted, it's a recharge 5-6, but while it's waiting for the recharge at a 500-foot range, this bugbear is going to be hiding and prone. So the question is, when he pops up to shoot you, can you find him? Does the wizard go cast Dimension Door, grabbing its fighter friend and then appearing right next to the bugbear sniper? I don't know, that's up to you. Obviously, I made more of these guys. There's an exterminator, a CR11 bad guy with a blinding flash, like a flash grenade, right? If they're special forces, that makes sense. They can stun you, and I made it be stunned until the start of your next turn. This way, you can stun a PC and not steal their turn. But you are still stunned, so you automatically fail strength and dex saves, and attacks on you have advantage, and you're incapacitated, which means you lose concentration, you can't speak, and obviously you'd become surprised. So you can stun them until the start of their next turn. And hell, if you're running boss monsters straight out of 5th edition's WotC's books, and they've got stunned until the end of their next turn, as a feature that's something the monsters do, just give it a try doing it until the start of their next turn, and you might find that players will like it a lot more. They're still gonna hate getting stunned, but at least now they don't lose their turn and they still get to play D&D. And I did one more, the Firebrand. This one has a paralyzing squeeze, so if it grapples you, it can also squeeze the life force out of you and paralyze you and then beat you with the Morning Star. Also has a simple move and attack, legendary action, evasion, legendary resistances, you know, the things a boss needs. The goal with these is that you can use them to make a whole adventure out of bugbears. Not just a bad guy for the start of a campaign, you know, the first couple of levels, but you can use these kinds of bugbears throughout a campaign. And you could pair them with the hobgoblins and the bugbears from our previous Mystic Monsters videos. And suddenly now you're going to have an arsenal of bad guys. All kinds of goblinoids that are going to be appropriate for a whole campaign. You could do literally nothing other than fight goblinoids from level 1 to maybe 20 and have a blast. Although I don't have a level 20 bad guy for the goblinoids. Well, I did make a goblin god real quick. If you want that goblin god and a PDF with all of this stuff I've showed you so far in it, including my lore on where goblins come from in my setting, you get all the goblins and the hobgoblin warband from our previous video, all in one PDF. Then you can go check out the Mystic Arts Patreon, where we post our broadsheet, these mystic monsters, and additional game tale episodes and Dadi's diaries, other bonus content and bonus videos. At the Adept tier, you get this PDF. You also get all these monsters in the Obsidian version, if you want to look at them like this in your SRD vault. You also get access to our monthly digital magazine, the broadsheet, the last issue of which was 66 pages, and the first 3 issues now have enough content for you to start running a whole campaign in. Or you could scrub through this video and take a bunch of screenshots and save yourself the money. You just need to find the bits where I put the stat block on screen for some reason, and then you might be able to grab shots of it. But the real thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that The monsters are the story you're telling. When you're making a stat block, at least. You're telling some kind of story. And the bugbears could all have huge AoEs that, do damage in a cone. But then I'd be telling the story of something that breathes in a cone. Maybe it flies and is a dragon, right? Why do dragons get breath weapons? Because it feels like a dragon mechanically. So why do bugbears grab you and strangle you? Because I think it feels like a bugbear. And if you have a different idea of what you think a bugbear should be, then ignore everything I said about my bugbears and go make your own. I love getting third-party content. I love buying books like Tome of Beasts or Flea Mortals and flipping through and seeing what excites me. But a lot of the times, I don't use them. I am too opinionated. I end up reading books like that and then thinking, no, I want to do it like this. I want to change this one thing. I want to change this other thing. And I love that. I love the opportunity of reading a stat block and disagreeing with it, because then I know I'm exercising the muscle that thinks about story. So for the next monster you design, try to keep in mind, what story am I telling? What would make the monster feel like the image I have in my head? And once you've got that done, then think, is there a way that story can support other parts of the story and create mechanical synergy? Because that way you make the monsters feel like they know what they're doing. Like Keith Amon talks about in his books. Those synergies and tricks, the bugbear grappling and restraining someone for the goblins, the hobgoblins giving advantage so that the goblins all get stronger, the hobgoblins forming a line so that they become regimented and can all do extra damage, or the bugbears all having things that rely on grabbing things, strangling them, butchering them. All of those become different versions of this one monster, and it creates this idea that the monsters have a plan, and they have tactics. And the tactics are how they play together, what they want to do. So next time you read a stat block, go look at it. Go see if you have an opinion, if there's stuff you like or don't like. And then check whether that opinion is formed by the fact that there are obvious tactics on the stat block. A story in a box, the butcher that keeps hacking until you separate the grapple, or a sniper that's deadly at range but weak when you get up to it. Go tell that story at your table. And that's where we'll pick it up next time. This channel is run by me and my girlfriend, and if you want to support us directly, go check out our Patreon and grab the Goblinoids Mystic Monster sheet. If you're feeling especially generous, you might like the video, comment, share, or subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.